So, headaches tonight. How many people in the room have had a headache in the last month? Me too.
I have all time.
Yeah, okay, this is good for you then. Yeah, when I have a symptom checklist when people come into me. I mean, you could have a list of 50 things, but mine has 15 and headaches is one of them. The hard thing with headaches is if it were sort of a singular cause, most people would have figured it out by now. Come on in. But a lot of times it's like a whole bunch of different things. And so that's what I'm going to go through tonight is like possible causes, some maybe easy, quick things to try, but looking into the causes by maybe testing some things and like, looking at some things and maybe you just kind of look into like one thing at a time. And so there's a lot of different things that cause headaches that you may not be aware of, a ton. So a lot of times I have people measuring when they come in severity and frequency, like intensity, like how often when they start and then in the end. So I'll give you, we'll go through kind of the top reasons, but then there's some underlying things under that. Most of what I'm talking about is in even greater detail on my blog, on my website for May. It's all on headaches. So everything pretty much that I'm talking about tonight is all in there if you want to like read about it. I just like to do some of these in person so I can extrapolate a little bit, or if people have like individual questions. When we post the video, we will cut the video for questions. So none of your questions will be like for the whole or 2,000 people to hear. So we'll cut that. So don't worry about that because I'm afraid to like turn the camera off wrong. So we'll see. Okay, so a lot of you have had headaches in the last month. Do you know the difference between like tension, cluster, migraine? Do you know how to characterize those or how do they feel? So if you have headaches pretty regularly, where do you feel them?
Some days all over, in the back of my head.
Back here. I'm going to go to some anatomical stuff today. That's not something I know how to do, and I'm not a chiropractor, but like a lot of times for me, that's one of my triggers too. I can go and sometimes feel, I'm like, I don't think my neck should feel like that. It goes like this. And so sometimes when I get vertigo and dizziness and a migraine, a lot of times that's what mine is, not always. And so most people experience a headache at some point in their life. Some people more regular, some people less. Way more common in women, just like autoimmune and GI stuff. We get blessed with all that stuff. And so migraines in particular affect women way more than men. We'll talk about that because a lot of times there's a hormonal component with perimenopause and menopause. Women are more likely to be low on iron, more likely to have thyroid issues, and that's all connected with headaches. So vast majority of headaches are usually tension headache, which is usually the back of the head or like here. I have upcoming eye surgery in a couple weeks because that has been one of the causes of my headaches. Yep. So some of it's age and just basically my, I don't know if my husband said like your eyebrows are sinking in my eyes. I have all this heaviness from just some genetic, the way that I'm built, and I'm having I have just heaviness. And so all day I'm trying to hold up my eyes, like my eyelids are heavy. I'm trying to hold up, and that's basically causing dry eyes and like a tension headache. And so it took me a couple of years to figure that out. But I thought, well, this is weird. Like I should, nothing else has changed other than I got older, which apparently that's the cause. Like that was the problem. So, that's like tension headaches. Migraines then are throbbing, intense. So I've had those. I used to have those like cyclical, debilitating pain. If you've had those, no light, no sound, like just everything. Life bothers you. You just want to like lay in a dark room and nobody better talk to you. Sometimes you'll have like visual aura. So when I have a migraine, my first symptom is blurred vision, and it's very significant, and it's within a couple minutes. And so if I'm driving, if I don't pull over or like get to a safe space, then those always kind of freak me out. I sometimes don't even get that throbbing headache feel, but I all of a sudden can't, kind of see straight. So when I used to have migraines more regularly, I determined for myself going through menopause that it was low progesterone. And so when I see women a lot of times with headaches, a lot of times the progesterone is that's the first hormone to dip in your early 40s. I was late 40s at that time, but like that was the first one to dip. And so that just is one of the causes of, that. And so that's why hormone testing, if you're coming in with headaches and you're over the age of 40, for sure, we're going to test that. You could have that, younger, absolutely. But that's the first hormone to dip with women in perimenopause into menopause, and then all of a sudden they're having these cyclical headaches. And a lot of times they're these blurred vision, like migraine ones. Then there's cluster headaches. Those are not very common. That's probably 2% of the 100% of headaches that people have. Most of them are tension, migraines maybe 25%, and then maybe cluster. Those are more like short, recurrent like episodes, and they don't last super long, but they're really intense. So sometimes it can be a little scary, and they're like throbbing or piercing pain. Those are more common in men, actually. So it only represents 2% of the headaches, but about 80% of them are from men, often triggered by alcohol. And so that's just kind of an interesting thing too. Also, it tends to involve the hyperactivation of the trigeminal nerve. And so there can be a disordered metabolism of like serotonin and tryptophan, and I won't get into all the details, but some of your neurotransmitters, like if those are off, those can cause headaches. But yeah, alcohol is a big trigger for those, and those are more common in men. There's a whole bunch of really different kinds of headaches, but those are the top three kind of for practical purposes. What's the conventional treatment for headache then? If you go to a doctor or you Google something, what are you supposed to do?
Painkiller.
A
Painkiller.
Painkiller? Pop a pill? Like what?
Yeah. Well, for my migraines, it's rizatriptan, but
Okay.
otherwise it's Advil.
Yep, so like something over the counter, or you might get a script, right? What else?
Shots.
Shots? Yep, especially if it's migraine. So you guys all know this, but so popping an Advil here and there is not that big of a deal. Popping an Advil every day, because you have a headache every day for the rest of your life, is a really bad idea. That irritates your gut lining, lowers your stomach gases, causes then bacterial overgrowth, like lots of stuff going on with that. So nothing that we do we want it to be kind of ongoing every day, because then that means you haven't really figured out the root cause of it. If you get a headache once a month and you take a half dose of an Advil and it goes away, I feel like it's still good to figure out the root cause, but like that's less of a big issue in my opinion than if you're getting something all the time. But an ongoing use of NSAIDs in particular can increase like intestinal permeability, leaky gut. Also, we see things like rebound headaches from ongoing use of things. And so it's like the more you use an ibuprofen to get rid of your headache, the more likely you're going to have more, which, that sucks. And so then again, but you haven't figured out kind of root cause. So there's substantial evidence that all drugs used for the treatment of headaches may cause medication overuse. And then sometimes, as you know, you're dealing with the side effect of the med you're taking. Maybe your headache's better, but now you have other things or whatever. And so then what happens when you have a side effect from the first drug that you're taking? What's usually the solution?
Another drug.
Right, another drug. So I mostly am seeing people over the age of 40. It doesn't mean that I can't, but that's most often when a lot of this, it's like hormonal, all this stuff's like changing. And I get a lot of people who come to my office and are kind of like, I don't know what happened, but I'm like 43 and now I'm on 5 meds. And, like a few years ago I wasn't. And I'm on that, and then I'll ask them like, what are you on this med for? Oh, I'm this to take care of that. And that's the side effect of that, but it's like, but nobody figured out the root cause of why you have it. And so then, after a while, it just gets to be a lot, and then long term. Okay, so questions I like to ask if I'm doing like a clinical interview with you about your headaches. Here's questions I ask. How often does it occur? Does it follow a pattern? Weather, by the way, is a big trigger for like migraines for some people that I can't fix, sorry. Does it happen for certain periods of the month? So I might be tracking like a menstrual cycle. Do you wake up with it? If you wake up with it, often it's dehydration. Or it can be TMJ, teeth clenching. I have that too. How long does it last? What's one thing that you could do that will definitely bring on a headache? So it's like, do you know your triggers? Is it foods? Is it allergy? Is it lack of sleep? Is it forgetting to drink water, forgetting to eat, stuff like that. Once it begins, is there anything that you typically do that will stop it? That gives me information too on like what makes it better. Do your headaches tend to come on when you're in a certain place? And so then we start talking about histamines and mold and like things like that. Like, is it environmental exposure? How long have you lived in your house? How old is your house? Like, things like that. Or people will say, I have a couple teachers I'm working with. I had them do mold testing. It was positive. They're working at they feel at at work, and they just assumed it was like stress, but it's like mold in the classroom they're at, because when they go home, it's fine. And they just had connected with like the kids are driving me crazy, but like that's probably it too. But you know, like it's probably both. Do you still have headaches on vacation? If you don't have headaches on vacation, but you have them at home, then maybe there's a stress component, neurotransmitter component there. What's one thing you can do that you know will prevent it from coming on? Again, gets to root cause a little bit. And then, do your headaches occur year-round or not? So if they're not year-round, then a lot of times there's a histamine component or like a seasonal allergy component. We talk about histamine in connection with like sinus infection and other things, but like headaches is a histamine thing too, so we're going to dig into that tonight. I'll throw out to you a couple, quite more than a couple, suggestions of general things to try that don't really have any side effects of trying, that are, nothing bad will happen if you try these things, to see what happens. And like, so those are ideas of things you could try for headaches. If you are not sleeping well, that is the first place that I would start, is figuring out why you're not sleeping well. I don't mean taking another drug for that, but figure out why you're not sleeping well, because I know poor sleep will trigger my headaches for sure. So, number one. Number two, drink some water. Maybe some electrolytes, maybe some bougie water. Half your body weight, half your ideal body weight in water in ounces. Every day, most people I talk to are not doing that. Plain water is totally cool. However, you could potentially drink too much of that, and if you don't have enough electrolytes, salt, magnesium, potassium, chloride, then electrolyte packets are really good to throw in your water. That's what I have in mine right now. Element is a really good brand. That's probably one of my favorites. LMNT. A new one that I have in my, I should have brought some. It's called, like, the flavor was like Blue Crush. And no artificial colors, sweeteners, like any of that stuff. The brand is Salt, SALTT. I really like that one. I forgot the other one that I get on my Full Script account. That one's good too.
Redmond?
Redmond's good.
No. Can I say something about
Yeah,
Redmond?
Ultima's okay. We got that too here, but it doesn't really have a lot of salt. So
Redmond has chemicals in it.
that one does? Yeah, I haven't used that one before, but I know some of my clients use that
I
one.
just wanted to let you know, because I know some people that have used it and they quit because they found
Yeah, what's in there? Yeah.
Mhm.
So Salt and Element are probably my two favorite ones, I would say. I have POTS, if anybody knows what that is, but I have issues like regulating my blood pressure, like standing up and sitting down. I get dizzy really often. So I tend to work with young women with POTS too. And so that's a huge thing too, is staying hydrated, but getting a crap ton of salt. And so I get 1,000 milligrams of salt in the first 3 hours of the day. And the best way to do that is for me to drink one of those elements or salt, because that's 500 right there. And I just put it in my water, because I probably need the water too. And I just make sure to, salt the heck out of everything. So that's huge for just like maintaining blood pressure. Okay, sleep, hydrate. Again, these are just basic lifestyle things that are probably going to help other things if you do them too, so why not? Magnesium glycinate. I'll talk about Theranos a little bit today too. Here's one right here. This one, 400 milligrams. Yeah, I take 500 if I'm feeling fine, like on a typical night, but I will take 1,000 if I've had a headache. So this is 400 milligram capsules, and so I would say at least that, but I'm going to say 500 to 1,000 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. Most of us are magnesium deficient anyways, and so magnesium is probably in my top 5 like general supplements without giving medical advice. If I did, give you 5 things to take, magnesium would in there. Before bed is when I like it, 45 minutes to an hour before bed. It's not going to knock you out like a Benadryl or anything, I'm not saying, but it should help calm and relax. Great for restless leg. If you have high stress and migraines also, sometimes magnesium threonate is a better choice than glycinate, but you got to see what sits better for you. Last December, I think my blog was on all the different kinds of magnesium. If you go to the doctor, they'll be like, take some magnesium. No one ever tells you what kind. There's citrate, oxide, malate, glycinate, there's tons, and they all have pros and cons. And so taking the right type of magnesium for the right thing that you have is important. If you don't want to get into all that and you don't know what your problem is, take magnesium glycinate, or you can take a magnesium blend. The glycinate is probably the best absorbed of the 8, and so that's why I like it. And it's good for just like general calm and relaxation. So, but Theraonate's really good for migraines in particular. L-theanine is the other one I like. And a lot of times it's in some of those cortisol reducing supplements. It's usually like ashwagandha, L-theanine, and magnesium combo. L-theanine are like 200 milligrams once or twice a day. I don't know if she brought that one out. No. Again, that's another thing. It's not really going to hurt anything. That's a good just kind of relaxation supplement. When I work with adults and children with ADHD, either that I've diagnosed or they come from somewhere that they've been diagnosed, I do L-theanine and green tea actually as a combo.
How do you spell that, L-theanine?
Thea.
Oh, T-H.
Yeah,
Oh.
the, like theanine.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And we have it out here. Caffeine for people with ADHD. Is that rain? Oh gosh,
Yeah.
that's bad. Yeah. Caffeine for people with type 1 and 2 ADHD helps you focus and like calm actually. So you would think it would rev you up, but it doesn't. It does the opposite. If you ever talk to somebody with ADHD who says they take a Benadryl and they can't sleep, that's like a classic ADHD thing. It does like the opposite for you as opposed to knocking you out, right? But just as a side note, I use high dose green tea capsules if they're a kid and they're not going to drink, 32 ounces of green tea, every day. And then I combine that with L-theanine. They even make, it's like capsules where it's green tea and L-theanine like mixed in. And so that can be great. Sometimes I test that with kids at school. Sort of traditional approach might say that we shouldn't give kids caffeine. But again, for a certain segment of the population, that can help them focus. And I'd rather do that than put them on a bunch of drugs. So really, green tea capsules with maybe 100 milligrams of caffeine is not a bad idea with the L-theanine. So it's very like calming and helps people focus. If you think that your headaches may be histamine related, like seasonal, then taking a break from consuming fermented and cultured foods. Now I know that these are healthy for your gut, but for some of us they're not. In fact, everything ferments in my gut times 50, so like I don't tolerate that stuff a lot. Especially if you have histamine issues and you have bloating, gas, or any IBS, so a lot of times those go together because you have low stomach acid. Traditional antihistamines, Benadryl, Zyrtec, there's a lot worse things you could take, but they lower your stomach acid too. Then that can cause bacterial overgrowth. And most people with histamine or allergies or sinus issues or reflux also have IBS issues. So it's because those things are connected if you're taking ongoing meds that are like kicking your stomach acid down. So beer and wine are huge for fermented things. So a glass of wine will set me over the edge. I can't drink it all, but in particular, like wine will do it for me, like red wine. This is my favorite. But that'll make me dizzy and kind of flushed and like feel, out of it. A lot of times women in particular will say they can tolerate it until about the age of 45. All of a sudden they can't drink anymore. Like they try it and it just doesn't feel good anymore. Or they're like, it takes them like 3 days to recover. So that's not worth it. So you can't do the wine walk anymore or whatever. To get into the weeds too much, but that's always difficult for me. If you have issues digesting high histamine foods, like some of those fermented things, that would be dried fruit, cheese, wine, beer. If you think of anything old, canned tuna, like processed in that way, lunch meat, there's a supplement called DAO. Just write down DAO. DAO for histamine. I have that in my fridge, so I use that sometimes. 5 to 15 milligrams is good. If you have low stomach acid, if your gut is off, you will not have the enzyme needed to digest high histamine foods. And so instead of blocking it with an antihistamine or blocking it with some drug or just skipping those foods, why not teach your body how to digest that stuff? What were you going to say?
About tuna.
Because it's canned. It's like canned chicken, canned tuna. It's been it could sit in a can forever. Leftovers, same thing. If you've had leftovers in the fridge more than 72 hours.
It's producing more histamine.
Yeah, just sitting in there. Cheese, same thing. It's like anything that's a cured, fermented, bacon, lunch meat. And it doesn't mean you can't have any of that stuff, but like think about that. You can look up low histamine diet. I do that with people too. Sometimes that'll take care of a lot of stuff. The low histamine diet is very confusing. There's things that like bring on histamine. Just try to avoid like, there's like 8 or 10 top high histamine foods. It's alcohol for sure. And then it's any of the cured meats, cheeses, sulfured dried fruits like apricots. Those kill me too. So I always thought I had an allergy to apricots, but I could eat them fresh, but dried. And around about the 5th one, I was like, my throat was kind of itchy and I felt funny. My husband used to make fun of me because I love them. And I was like, I think I'm gonna have 6 tonight. He's like, how about you don't die? You know, like, and just, you know, because I'm like, I think I have an allergy, but it wasn't it wasn't really a true allergy. It was like a histamine response. Just from the sulfured apricots though, like the dried apricots, I could eat fresh apricots all day long and it was fine. So I was like, something's weird. Also, when I would go to Basics and get the unsulfured apricots, it was fine. So they're not like pretty and orange. They're like brown and gross looking, but you know, because they don't have all the food dye in them either. But
I
so
like pretty food.
yeah, so histamine is a big one. Hormone imbalance, particularly for women. So without getting into the weeds on that one, typically in the early 40s, the first hormone to take a dive is progesterone, then testosterone, then estrogen. So I think we have Vitex up here. Vitex is a good, just very, low level intervention really for anyone, but that will balance your progesterone and your estrogen, or at least detox the high estrogen, low progesterone. So that's a possibility. Really, I would get blood or saliva hormone labs. I prefer saliva and have somebody look at them. Probably not your traditional doctor, but like somebody in functional medicine who does hormones a lot or does hormone replacement. That's a really good idea. And just see kind of what your patterns are, because it's not just numbers and it's not also just like what's in range. We want to look for like what's like optimal. But hormone imbalance, so that's why a lot of times women who are still cycling will have a headache before their cycle starts the day before or the day of. It's because that's when your hormones are crashing, and so that can be hard to deal with. So actual food sensitivities, intolerances, or allergies, those can cause headaches for sure. So we talked about histamine, sulfites, this whole sulfured apricot thing I was talking about, like sulfites, those are in wine and other cured things. Some people have issues with aspartame. Shouldn't be eating aspartame anyways, but a lot of the sugar, like artificial sugars or like sugar substitutes, cause issues for people too, like histamine issues, gut issues too, because your body doesn't recognize that stuff. It's not real food. All right, some maybe behavioral contributions, not just, medical anatomical stuff, but eating crap food, processed food. There's just a ton of stuff in there. You can't begin to like break down what's in that. So some of that stuff might be bothering you. Insufficient magnesium, we talked about, dehydration, sleep, stress, mental, emotional stress, poor posture. So if you go see a chiropractor, they'll talk to you about that. If you're like this versus like this, because that's strain on your neck. Mouth breathing, if you have sleep apnea or you are breathing through your mouth versus your nose at night, that can do it too. Of course, certain like cleaning chemicals, like stuff like that can do it. Let's see, I covered most of this stuff. I do neurotransmitter testing with people. I won't get into that tonight, but like sometimes if that stuff is off, so those are things like serotonin dominance or not enough tryptophan or calming neurotransmitters. That's a urine test I can run on anybody anytime. If you are having a hard time sleeping and you feel stressed and maybe you feel like you need some calm, another good supplement idea that's not going to hurt much unless you take an SSRI already at night, then don't take both at the same time, is 5-HTP. So that's tryptophan, which is what's in turkey that makes everybody sleepy. But it's a precursor to build more serotonin during the day. So I take 100 milligrams of that small little dose through the winter, because that's when I get sad, because it's winter. So I just went off it last week, and now I'm like, well, maybe I should take it this week again. And again, it's not going to knock you out, but just it should make you calm and sleepy. And then the idea is that slowly, that's the precursor that you need to build more serotonin, which is your happy feeling. So thyroid issues, that's another one that'll cause headaches. Not just your TSH level, but and a lot of times it's super hard to get with insurance, but when I look at thyroid, I want your TSH, what's called your free T3, free T4, and then maybe an antibodies test. So like right now, I have a little bit of a subclinical hypothyroid going on myself with some, menopause stuff, and me trying to adjust some stuff is actually what caused my headache, I think. But on the surface, your thyroid stimulating hormone could look good, but if the numbers underneath don't look great, everything's working too hard to be able to keep your TSH normal. But if you don't dig down and look at those other things, a subclinical poor functioning thyroid or hypothyroid or Hashimoto's, if it's autoimmune, can definitely cause headaches. So that's just another lab to look in. Dental issues, I don't really know how to fix that, but you can look into that. So that's like poor bite alignment, or I was talking about how I have TMJ on the right side, or if you clench your jaw when you sleep, but you don't know you do. Biggest causes for migraines in particular, or triggers, are dehydration, alcohol, histamine. MSG we didn't talk about, but like that's a big trigger for people with migraines sometimes. So I'm just giving you a list of like potential things to look into to eliminate. Nitrates we talked about. Weather, I can't fix that, but hypoglycemia, and so that's like when you don't eat for a long time, which some people cannot eat for a long time, or like I fast in the morning until 11, I feel fine, but I eat when I'm hungry then, and so honoring that. But when you go, if you don't plan your meals ahead, or like how you're going to do stuff, and you're just racing around all day and you haven't eaten, that can trigger migraine too, along with dehydration. The sun, unfortunately. So that sometimes can get people, if you're already sort of like developing one, sometimes like looking into the sun will do it too. Poor sleeping, the trigeminal nerve inflammation. Glutathione, you can get that here too, or pour that like in a supplement. That's a good supplement too, potentially for migraines, glutathione. I have it in the blog written too. There's a lot of research showing that intercellular glutathione is very low in people that have migraines, giving us potential information that maybe, that if it was higher with the general population, that might, make things feel better. So that calms your nerves. So final list, I think I've hit most of it. Hydration, magnesium, blood sugar and insulin function. We didn't talk maybe directly as much about that, but like I talked about not eating for 6 or 7 hours and having hypoglycemia. If you have poor insulin tolerance, if you have diabetes, prediabetes, high A1C, that can cause headaches too, because your blood sugar is just doing this all day, and so that can make you feel crappy. Sleep we talked about, and not only quality sleep, but not only quantity sleep, but quality sleep too. Some people have like, I don't have one, but like a fancy Apple Watch that tells you how you sleep. Don't get too like crazy with it, because then you'll be so stressed out looking at the data all the time, and trying to sleep better, and then you can't. And then, but if you're not sleeping well, find out why that's the case. Dental issues we talked about, sex hormones, dietary triggers, which can be histamine or some of the chemicals or artificial sugars. 5-HTP I talked about, so that supports your serotonin. So those would be the big things I would say that I see are causes of headaches that are worth looking into. I know that's like a long laundry list, but that's why they're hard to figure out sometimes. And chances are it's probably not one thing you have, it might be a couple of those things. What questions do people have?